And then you can get on the rest of your day.
Okay.
I first met Martha Jacobs in 1979, and she and her husband have been friends with my family ever since. We got to work together until about 1987 when she and Lauren, her husband, moved from New York City to Detroit, Michigan, where they've lived with kids and grandkids ever since. Martha's a trained registered nurse and has spent a lifetime caring for people in all sorts of circumstances of life and death. Let's spend 11 minutes with her. Martha, thanks for joining me. With so many other options for professions, what got you interested in nursing as a career?
Well, it is started off in, I think, a supernatural way because there's no other way to explain this. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I was watching a movie about a missionary at the church that my parents had brought me to in a children's class. And part of this movie, it wasn't even the main theme or anything, it was just a scene of someone dying in bed, and this nurse was taking care of this person. And it grabbed me dramatically. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to take care of people like that. It was so powerful. I made a decision in that moment. I want to be a nurse. And I went home and I told my father, and he laughed at me. You know, how could a child know what they want to do? And I remember thinking, well, I'll show him. He'll see. And then when I went to middle school and high school, I loved biology. It inspired me. It was really like, okay, this really is what I want to spend my time with. And then when I went to nursing school, I actually felt like, as I was learning more about anatomy and physiology in depth, it strengthened my faith. I just couldn't imagine how people could study these things and not see there's a designer and a creator. But that's the background for my choosing nursing.
Pretty great. Nurses are often seen as not as important as doctors, whether in hospitals, even in doctors' offices. How did that make you feel?
Well, some people might think that way, but in my experience, the nursing role is a strategic one, and it's one that it's filling in a space that nobody else is. Doctors order treatment, nurse carries it out. She is the go-between, explaining, the advocate for the family of the patient and the patient, and explaining them to the doctors and explaining the doctors to them. And so I never, ever felt like it was an unimportant role, no matter what kind of attitude people had.
Go ahead.
Really, the value was reinforced by experience because families and patients turn to the nurse. You know, that's who they were appreciating and turning to.
Availability, if nothing else.
Yeah.
There is much controversy about end-of-life matters in hospitals and in parliaments around the world. Is euthanasia a subject you've thought about a lot, and do you have an opinion on it?
Yes, I do. I mean, we see, the issue on the ballots about assisted suicide and how can you not, whether you're in a hospital or not. And the fact is that I really know from reading God's word that life is sacred and holy. Only God can give it and take it away. So euthanasia, which is killing, is really usurping God's role. It's the circumstances that make people look to euthanasia. If it's the patient, usually is because of suffering. And that is something that we need to have compassion for and help with, comfort, alleviating suffering as much as possible. With modern medicine, there's so much more available. But the time of death is really God's authority. It needs to be left with him. He's the author of life. He's the author of death. And, Job, he says right in the beginning, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And Solomon says there's a time to be born and a time to die. God has his purposes, and I respect that.
Thanks, Martha. I was going to ask you what influences your opinions about life and death matters, but I think you've just told me that somehow this divine creator, this deity that some call God, and the Bible, you seem to quote that with regularity. Do you have another favorite author or healthcare professional who's spoken to your heart about things?
There are people who I have worked with, highly respected, but as far as, speaking to my heart, there's nobody on these matters who's spoken more to my heart than King Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes and King David in the book of Psalms, who've really spoken so powerfully. In Psalm 139:16, that's one of my favorite. You saw me, he's talking to God, you saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. So that's just one example of many that are given in the scriptures about the sacredness of life and how the Creator himself involves himself in the number of our days, the time on earth, when it begins and when it ends.
And one of my favorites is Psalm 31, where we read, "Our times are in your hands." I appreciate the Psalms too. Martha, when you pass, and I don't wish that anytime soon for you, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh, gee. I guess my heart is that I hope I'm remembered as somebody who really served and cared enough about people to point them to our wonderful God and creator and lover of our souls, who I believe is the source of all true hope and help and healing in this life, not to mention the one to come.
Although you can mention the one to come.
Yes. And that really drives, or that's what drives how I live now, knowing about the one to come. And that's another thing that's told us, for wisdom's sake, teach us to number our days that we might present to you a heart of wisdom, and keeping that in mind.
I prayed that this morning.
That
very prayer. Yeah. Look, Martha, do you ever have enough time with your grandkids?
It's really a reaffirmation of life, isn't it? Just being with them. They are a pleasure in this season of life like none other.
Hmm. I have 5 grandsons and one more on the way this month, soon to come. 6 boys, and they're all a
Oh,
joy. Uh, yeah, I really
well,
love being a grandfather.
my grandson is sleeping over tonight. But that's actually leads to the passion that I have right now, um, because in our day, abortion has become such an issue. And with the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, it's front and center in the headlines here. And our congregation has what we call pekuach nefesh, and that is, saving lives, the highest mitzvah that there is. And so a group of us go to the abortion center here in the area and hold up signs encouraging people to choose life. My sign that I made has a picture of a little baby in a womb, and it says small lives matter.
Hmm.
And that's the life that's forgotten in this debate. And we've had people in our state trying to change the Constitution, the state constitution, to embed abortion. And there was a woman who wanted me to sign that petition the other day, and I told her, I believe abortion is killing a life. I can't do that. So that's one of the things that I'm doing now that is a life and death issue.
Yeah, I would say. Is there anything else you want to tell the Bob's Your Uncle audience?
Well, I guess that was what I wanted to say. That's
Okay.
my focus these days. And as a nurse, it's something I'm passionate about.
You want life to happen.
I
Excellent.
do.
Martha, thank you very much for your time. I wish you and Lauren and your family all the nachas, all the joys of life. And it's really a pleasure to catch up with you yet again. One day we'll see each other in person.
Okay, is there a little bit more time, or is this it? Because
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
there was one other thing that I thought about back under the end of life matters.
Okay.
And that has to do with people getting confused about life support. And I just wanted to say that I feel like trying to, keep a life going beyond the point that the body is able to support life is like the other end of the spectrum of euthanasia, because life support is a great thing. It's meant to help the body that's failing temporarily through a crisis until it can kick in and take over again. But when it's past that point, it can't do it anymore. And it's time to let go. And there are people who hang on and actually feel guilty, like removing life support is the same as killing them, but it isn't. It isn't. The body supporting life is between God and that body. And when a person's time comes, it comes. That was one of the things that I've thought about under that subject, and I meant to mention.
Okay, I will dovetail it in there. Thank you. All the joys of editing. You're going to make me work hard tonight. That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, Martha, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.